You're watching WRKM Channel 22, number one in the region. The following WRKM broadcast is for mature audiences only. Over the last week and a half, there's one word I've heard more than any other word in the last week and a half, and that is the word civility. Be civil. Be polite. Have the conversation. Politicians invoke it like a prayer. Pundits use it as a cure-all, and your aunt quotes it like a Bible verse on her Facebook. But the question I keep coming back to is, what if civility has no virtue at all? What if civility is just a fetish, a political porn that rewards performance over actual progress where anything changes? This week, or actually last week, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Now, while we will not celebrate his death on this show, we will not lie about his life. But this episode isn't so much about him, and then more of just the fallout of his assassination. Now, in this great time of strife, we go back to our old friend, civility. We will talk about how civility has shaped our politics, our media, and even now, how we grieve. It's Saturday night. Let's have talks we can have when the sun is up. Good evening. I'm Ralphie Martinez, and this went in darkness. You've definitely noticed I've changed my headphones from the cold opening to now. A lot of you were right about those silver headphones. They're very sweaty. They're not good when you're broadcasting and ranting. I should have listened. But I'm Ralph. I only learn things the hard way. Look at that cool pin I got. Went to the Oasis concert. We'll talk about that at some point. But tonight, we will be talking about, of course, the big news. Well, maybe not so much as it happened about it. We can change ago, and we had already set this time to return, which every time we come back, there's something horrendous that has happened. And I wonder if it's our fault. If we just kept podcasting consistently, would things be better? Would people be happier? Would less tragedies happen? So I blame myself, really. So I'd like to apologize to Charlie Kirk. I should have kept podcasting consistently, and the terrible events would not have happened. But one thing I did kind of come to, and there was a different version of this show originally, or this episode, talking about this, and I realized now would be less of a time for lectures and finger wagging, because everyone else is doing that. Everyone else all over the internet's doing that. Now would be a time for maybe a little conversation, even though it's one-sided, only me talking. Bobby does not talk. Not because we don't believe in his freedom of speech. We just don't believe in Bobby as a person. So we don't let him talk. We keep him under lock and key. You don't understand what it's like to talk to him outside of this show. So that is for your benefit. I sound like the government. But one thing I did come to terms with a lot is the different perspectives that happen in real time when someone is assassinated. Before, someone gets assassinated, the news kept it classy. When JFK was assassinated, all you knew was the news. People were very sad because the president had been shot, but you never heard about the guys in bars who cheered it because there were people who did that. There were people who cheered the death of Kennedy, the mafia, people who really wanted to invade Cuba, Allen Dulles. But there were everyday people who also didn't like Kennedy either, what he represented, what he was becoming. So I wasn't necessarily shocked when people celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk, but I was actually shocked by other people who were shocked by it because I had heard the stories about Kennedy. I had heard the stories about so many other political people who had been killed, and there was some celebration on one side or the other. It happens all the time in, South American countries. Hold on. Yeah. Still getting used to these headphones. It happens all the time in South American countries. A guy gets taken out. It benefits one side. They celebrate. The other side is kind of a little nervous. I thought we knew how the game goes. But apparently we did not. We did not. And I saw the wide gambit of reactions to his death. I saw some sadness. I saw some empathy. I saw some celebrating. I saw people who were just kind of like, don't care. And that's their prerogs. I think it's your prerog to not care. Because as we say all the time on this show about so many individuals, people we've been proud of, people we've been let down by, legacies are three-dimensional. They've always been three-dimensional. What one man means to someone can mean something different to someone else. Yes, is he the guy who quoted Jesus a lot and wanted to be a good Christian? Absolutely. He is that. Is he also the guy that said racist, homophobic, misogynistic things? He's that guy too. 3D legacies, man. And it was kind of amazing to see the media and the conservatives try to whitewash that part and rebrand him as he was just a young boy at 31. He was a young boy, full of life, wanting to share his opinion and have the conversation. But, George Floyd, who was killed by a cop, then gets all his dirty laundry of being a lifelong criminal thrown at him to negate his tragedy. That was fair to conservative. But now it's liberals' turn to go, hey, Charlie granted all those things. He was also these things. No. Do that. It's not fair. And I think what we always look for in this show is consistency. I personally would hope that the people who hate me now would hate me in death. I don't want your fake sympathy. I don't want you to give me fake thoughts and prayers. No. Hate me now. Hate me then. I approve of that. There are people who will pull up clips of this show and go, look how much of an asshole he was. Look who he made fun of. And they'd be justified in that. And I wouldn't be upset because it would just mean my clips are getting views now. So I'd be excited at the prospect of people bringing up my podcast content dirty laundry. It's the game we're in. It's the game we're in. Bobby's just waiting and plotting. He's already got a memoriam made for me, which I appreciate. I didn't like watching it. Made me really sad. Made me realize I'm more closer to 40 than I am 20. Thanks a lot, Bobby. But there was this kind of whitewashing of his legacy, and I found that to be unfair to him for a guy who didn't believe in empathy, for a guy who didn't believe in whitewashing anything. Well, it's not true, is it? You completely agree with whitewashing a lot of things, mainly making everything white. But if there's one thing he didn't do was mince words. He wanted you to know how he felt. He didn't care about your feelings. So the conservatives get in their feelings. They're not honoring Charlie, but I would argue the liberals pulling up his clips, reminding people what he said, they were honoring his legacy, kind of. I think. I would argue they did a better job of honoring his legacy. Because at the end of the day, I think I understood the whole rush to we cannot condone political violence. You know, thoughts and prayers to his family, which fair. Thoughts and prayers to his family. They didn't fucking expect that to happen. And now they gotta live a whole life without a dude that was a pillar of their household. I can get that kind of sympathy and empathy. I do. But I also don't expect people to feel that way. Because legacies are 3-dimensional. You know, and what I saw a lot of was not about truth. It was about smoothing out these rough edges of the reality he was. So the people who loved him didn't feel uncomfortable. Because when you bring up clips of his racism, homophobia, and misogyny, wow, misogyny. I didn't know I had accents. Or maybe I have a lisp, I don't know. But when you bring up these things, the people who love him now are kind of those things. And that's uncomfortable for them because they don't see themselves as those things. So they almost got a double whammy there. They lost their favorite person, and now they're getting called those 3 things. Which, as Prince would say, if the bra fits. One of my favorite quotes. Mainly because me and Prince clearly have an agreement on what kind of guys we are. See, I too can make off-color jokes. I'm not a crying snowflake. Conservatives now are. But civility has always been an open debate in this country. Does civility solve anything? Is it more of a is it a one tool for everything? Or is it more of a sometimes thing? And I want to really kind of explore that a little bit. And once again, this is the second version of the show we're doing because I just didn't want it to be a combative thing. I kind of wanted to be hey man, hey. And so I pulled up these historical events, historical context examples for your consideration. And maybe in one of these, you'll understand what I'm trying to say. Martin Luther King versus the white moderate. For context, King was jailed in Birmingham, Alabama for leading a nonviolent protest against segregation. The local white clergy published a statement calling him an outsider, which that's not nice, who was creating tension and urged him to stop protesting and use the courts instead. The courts that were historically anti-black. They claimed to support civil rights in principle, but thought King's tactics were too disruptive and uncivil. He famously wrote back one of his sharpest critiques, and it's one that I think I've seen come up here and there more and more in these trying times. I have almost reached a regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is devoted to order than justice. And that right there, to me, tells you what civility really is. What you want is change under the prism of being comfortable. You don't want to be uncomfortable about it. You don't want to feel uncomfortable. You just want it done, quote unquote, the right way. And essentially what you're looking at here is a guy asking for civility, which indirectly protects the powerful. You want King to go to the courts, which are historically anti-black, to do it the quote unquote right way, which, to be fair, would hinder his cause further, would delay progress because you're still keeping the norms together. And at this point in time, the courts didn't give a damn about evidence, didn't give a damn about the truth. If you were black, you hanged. But the white moderate at the time about Birmingham, Alabama will tell you Martin Luther King was being disruptive. Women's suffrage. The respectable leaders, figures like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, were celebrated for their ladylike advocacy. They courted wealthy white women and aligned themselves with white male elites to seem safe and non-threatening. Their campaigns emphasized civility, proper dress, polite lobbying, controlled public appearances. Then there were the radicals. Groups like the National Women's Party, led by Alice Paul, were far more confrontational. Fuck yeah. They picketed the White House, disrupted political events, went on hunger strikes after being arrested. These tactics were seen as unladylike and deeply uncivil, sparking outrage across all newspapers of the time. Intersectionality was also ignored. Black women like Ida B. Wells Barnett and Mary Church Terrell, sorry, I laugh at myself for being unable to read sometimes, were often sidelined or excluded from mainstream suffrage events because they were seen as a threat to the respectable view of women's suffrage because they were Negro women. The 19th Amendment was not won just by Susan B. Anthony. That's what the history books would celebrate. But it was won by having both. The same way civil rights was won by having both. We talk about it all the time, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Malcolm X, being the more radical of the two, said a lot of wild shit. He protested harder, to be fair. He advocated for fighting back in a much more aggressive manner. But you cannot win the civil rights movement with just one of those guys. You win it because of both of them. But that's not the fun. It's not the fun way of putting it in the history books, the sanitized way of putting it in the history books. You've seen so many memes of Charlie Kirk and MLK put together. Both were killed for their beliefs. Not exactly. Let's not go there now. Let's go there. The killer hasn't even said why he shot Charlie Kirk yet. He's not even cooperating. So until we have some kind of letter of confession, I don't know why he did it. I sure fucking know why they killed MLK, the FBI. But will that FBI part get us taken down? Maybe. But once again, here you have two movements that people demanded be respectful, but because kind of the uncivility of what they were doing, they were able to get things across they were able to get things across the goal line. They were able to achieve the things they were setting out to do. And maybe those two examples don't work for you. All right. Fair. You want one more? Okay. Let's talk about the normal gays, right? Because that's what, we got our boy, the vice president? JD Vance about, normal gays and shit. And there's some conservative gays that call themselves normal gays. Let's talk about the normal gays. Let's talk about our good friends at the Stonewall riots. You ever feel like whenever you're on this show, Bobby, that we get dry mouth really quickly? Because we know we're like this close to losing it all. The Stonewall riots. Now, the Mattachine Society, founded in the 1950s, was one of the first gay rights organizations in the United States. They believed in respectability politics. You dress conservatively, you speak more polite, you lobby quietly to prove that gays were normal people. And their slogan was, "We are just like you." Now, the slogan I like the slogan, but if you think you're trying to run a gay movement without it being fabulous, that's absurd. That's nuts. That literally being fabulous is one of the great things about being gay. Everyone I know who's gay, has a little flair to him, and I like it. And that's what makes it attractive to me. Sometimes I wish I was gay, but I can't because I am terminally heterosexual. But I am an ally. I am an ally. The spark of Stonewall, June 28th, 1969. Stonewall in New York City was known for a safe space for queer people, especially drag queens, trans women, and homeless LGBTQ youth. When the police raided the bar, the patrons fought back. This went on for a 6-day uprising. The respectable organizations like the Mattachine, I think it's the Mattachine Society, right? The Mattachine Society were horrified. They were called degenerates and criminals. But Stonewall sparked the modern LGBTQ movement. So, at the end of the day, whatever LGBTQ people have now did not come from the prim and proper, respectable way of doing it. It came from fucking having to fuck motherfuckers up. Let them know you're not to be fucked with. Let them know you can't just trample on us that way. Things had gone uncivil. And they met uncivility with more uncivility. This is how it happens. This is how change happens. What they would have preferred is that gay people just kept it quiet. Don't let us know you're gay. Just look normal, but be gay in secret. How is that living a life? How is that civil? How is that a virtue? How is that a virtue? A virtual virtue. A virtue. Today, Ralph's going to learn words. He's going to learn how to say virtue. And I think I don't say it enough because I don't believe in them. Because I think they're all full of shit. And we all pretend that they're important. Now, a personal one for me was post 9/11. You couldn't talk about fucking the war in Iraq a certain way. You couldn't say, hey, I thought we were in there for the WMDs. What, are you not patriotic? What, do you not love America? Even in Afghanistan, where it seemed like we were there way too long and accomplishing nothing, just our boys getting killed. We were not any closer to fighting Osama bin Laden than when we started. Now, keep in mind here, to put it into fucking context here, this whole war starts within the first year of Bush's term, really? First 2 years? And it lasts until, I think, mid of Barack's first. So all this time, if you didn't support the war, even though it was clear we were losing the war and more of our boys are coming back in caskets, and we weren't necessarily interested in Osama bin Laden as we were in oil, you were called unpatriotic. You were not being civil. You were not understanding why we're there to fight. And you didn't serve, so you wouldn't know. Well, how about that? And the people who fought against those wars and protesting against those wars were silenced. Bill Maher said something, and I think it's kind of funny. He forgets he said this. And like he now feels that people have gone too far with the criticism of Charlie Kirk. He said that it takes more balls to fly a plane into a building than our soldiers shooting missiles from far away. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. That's commitment. We have been very murky on the commitment. Our boys who put boots on the ground, they're committed. I fucking fuck with those dudes. But if you're sitting around flying a drone, I don't think I fucks with you. Because drones should be for cool cinematic shots. As a drone pilot, that's how I feel. This episode of This When in Darkness is brought to you by our newest sponsor, Only Convos, the hottest platform for extremely respectful dialogue. Are you tired of the messy, performative nature, the performative porn of modern politics? Are you sick of people screaming on cable news while pretending to solve problems? Only Convos has exactly what you need. You can get to watch two consenting adults engage in deep, meaningful conversations. Say you want to start off safe. Say you want to get your feet a little wet. Don't worry about it. We got you on that. We got the safe convos, zoning laws, public transportation funding, And if you're feeling really adventurous, healthcare policy spreadsheets. That's right. We talking spreadsheets. But for the premium subscribers who want to take it up a level, we got you on the Forbidden Conversations. We're talking race science, gender pay gaps, and of course, the most requested category, women learning how to submit. You can sign up today using the code CIVILITY for your first month free. Only Convos gives you the thrill of bad ideas without the consequences of saying them at Thanksgiving dinner. Only Convos. Because in 2025, having the conversation is the ultimate kink. But in all these things, just remind me how civility is just porn. And porn gives you pleasure without intimacy. And civility gives you the illusion of progress without any real change. And just like porn, civility has gone mainstream. It's everywhere. It's available everywhere. And you can consume it just about anywhere. Back in the day, right, porn was put in like the back rooms of video stores. And every video store had one. Even in the 90s, there was a store I used to go to on Graham Avenue. Great video store, but they had a back porn section. They kept that shit hidden. They were like, hey, this is where the real nasty shit happens. You know, you can come in here. Here's the beaded curtain. But know when you come in here, some wild shit going on up in here. That was the same thing with racism, authoritarianism, white supremacy. They were all somewhere else. They were like in these little backwood areas, little militias, little cults that were, developing in the South. But then the internet happened. And then porn was everywhere. But with porn came all this other shit too. Now you could access porn from your home. If you wanted to see some weird kinky shit, it was no longer you had to go somewhere and get a video. A couple of clicks, bam, you got it. So you have to practice your kink at home. Now you have to practice your white supremacy at home. Because now you can just watch videos on it all the time. You can look up books on it all the time. You can engage with other white supremacists all the time. So it becomes all the more normal to just live out your kink in that sense. Now, this is not to kink shame anybody, but if your kink is white supremacy, it's a little fucking weird. But now it's everywhere. And because social media is now also in your home, it's easy to like shit. It's easy to retweet some shit. It's easy to bookmark some shit. Sometimes you feel bold enough to throw it all out there. I know so many guys who I see them in OnlyFans girls comment sections, and I'm like, that's what you're doing? Because you have a wife. That's nuts. But at least I know what you're into. Same people with, guys like Charlie Kirk. I found out a lot of my friends had a certain specific kink, and Charlie Kirk was that kink. Now it's no longer just in the back rooms. It's on the streaming services. It's on YouTube. It's on podcasts. There's full political movements dedicated to these things. Suddenly, hate wasn't just in the back room. It was on your timeline, in your living room, at the dinner table. And just like porn, like once you normalize it and stop hiding it, you start bragging about it. And you start inviting people to join in. Like that, take a look around. AI right now was a fun little thing until people started making porn with it. Now it's all these weird apps where you can make your AI girlfriend and she can do weird movements and shit. But at the same time, there are people who use ChatGPT to be their best friend and to talk about white supremacist shit. Here you are. The kinks are no longer in the back rooms. Debate is also a level of porn. And it's kind of like the best porn because you know how it's going to end. It always starts the same way. Guy knocks on a lady's door. He's got a pizza. She can't pay for it. She knows some other way she can pay for it. She bangs them. Everyone comes. Everyone's happy. Everyone goes back to their life. No harm, no foul. Same thing with a lot of YouTube debates. Everyone knows what everyone's going to say. Everyone's got their assigned roles. The audience gets off to it a little bit like, oh my God. People end up, you watch your favorite debater finally nail a deep point and you come off to that. And essentially, everyone goes home. Not different. Not changed. Tantalized. Certainly feeling much more relaxed. But nothing has changed. You just watched a sex scene that doesn't really mean much. Then you have corporate America, who are the kings of edging, I believe. After a tragedy, companies create these diversity pledges, these, new reforms. They're all completely hollow. It's foreplay without the follow through. They just give you enough to feel turned on by the idea of progress, but never enough to actually satisfy it. Like they always just keep you hanging on, just hanging on. And eventually you get to the money shot, which is people shaking hands. You get these same pictures of my friend across the aisle and they shake each other's hands as they both jerk each other off on CNN and, that's the real moment you want. Look at us coming together. Look at us not doing anything. Isn't it great that we sold the fair? It's like, it's that stuff. And I'm always going to hope that clip of me doing the handshake jerk off is the one used at my memoriam. When I die, play that on a loop. Oh. Now, for those in front of the camera, it's a climax. But for those at home, it's just blue balls. And that's the beauty of the handshake of two parties coming together to mutually fuck you. But let's think about the cycle. Crisis happens, performance begins, audience feels momentary satisfaction, nothing really changes. And that's the addiction cycle that we have with civility porn. It's kind of amazing, really. It's kind of beautiful how we've fallen into this kind of trap. And it's because deep down, we just really want to get our shit off without anyone giving us bullshit. We want to be able to get our shit off and say what we want to say without anyone challenging us. And I think we've all experienced that. Listen, I'm a Latino male. Often I have to be quiet in moments to preserve relationships, to preserve situations. And I did that for a long time. I did that for a very long time. And what I realized recently was in the end, it didn't save anything. It didn't accomplish what I wanted it to accomplish. In the end, it just left me with bad feelings about myself, about the things I allowed to be said in front of me, to go unchallenged. And I think when I was younger, I fought it a bit more, but as you get older, you start turning into, if we can just get past this thing. And I used to be in situations where I had to deal with people who I thought were intellectually less than me, no offense. People who I thought were politically less than me, no offense. But it's true. People I couldn't stand. People who I knew had, if it came down to it, that my well-being and my family's well-being was not there. It's not in their list of things to care about, even though in front of me, they tell me how great I am. But when the camps opened up, they'd send me there. And I think the whole civility porn idea comes from that. Just watching people get off to the fact that, hey, we got past a social event where I didn't get challenged, where I was able to say the wildest shit and no one challenged me, and I get to go home with this great euphoric feeling of all the fun I had. Goody. But if you're the person who had to struggle and keep himself silent, closeted in a way, you go home feeling like shit. And I think I experienced that quite a few times. And I think the civility thing only also works if, this is going to sound mean, and I don't want it to sound mean. This is just honest. Because I do care about all Americans in some way, even the ones who can't fucking stand me. There cannot be a marketplace of ideas where a majority of the population is too intellectually bankrupt for the very ideas they attempt to purchase. We have a society that can't even window shop ideas because we're so intellectually bankrupt. And that's not because people are just bad people. It's because you have a political system that doesn't want you to be educated. Ronald Reagan said if smart people became the norm, his party would never win elections anymore. So he started the attack on the Department of Education that we see happening now when Trump says, I love dumb people. And now he's got Linda McMahon destroying it. These groups have found a way to take away what civility could have been, maybe. Having real debates could have been if we had a smarter populace. But we do not have a smart enough populace for civility. But knowing that this will fall on deaf ears and no one will give a shit, I have created a civility manual. It's 4 things. 4 things you have to remember if you want to maintain your peace in the civility life that we now have, or how you can be part of the problem, because we're going to have to be. There's no choice, it seems. When someone dehumanizes you, don't get upset. That would ruin the vibe. Instead, nod politely and say thank you for sharing your unique perspective on that issue. Number 2, if the policies harm your family, don't protest. That would spoil the fantasy. Instead, whisper, I respectfully disagree with my own oppression, while they keep smiling for the camera. Number 3, if they openly threaten your existence, invite them over for coffee. Civility porn thrives on the role play. So you kind of want to get to that old school Green Book, like, look at these blacks and whites hanging out together. He hates him because he's black. He can't do anything because he's white, but they're having coffee together. Kink, maybe they'll kiss. Final step. When you realize that the rules I've just given you were never about your own protection, just accept the fact that deep down, what people want is for us to be a star in their civility porn. And you know what? I'm down to be a porn star. I'm down to be a star, really. And I know where I can do that. And that's ABC. Our good friend, Jimmy Kimmel, was uncivil about the passing of Charlie Kirk. And he's out. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's a step towards the crumbling strength of free speech. The government is now using the FCC to punish language they don't like. And it is unfortunate. But don't get me wrong. The things I've said tonight, I feel them. I believe them. But I also believe that sometimes it's nice to be a millionaire. And I'm willing to sell out for a nominal fee. Now, I don't have what Jimmy has. That's the cross-nation appeal, nice suits, not white. But, since there's no way out of civility anyway, and essentially we are just going to have to pretend that none of these other things that have happened in life, racism, homophobia, misogyny, exist or matter. and we can't talk about those things, I'll fucking give it a shot. I'll go. I'll be the next Jimmy Kimmel. I'm down. I might as well sell out. There's no hope for anything else. We're not going to have real progress ever. So why not? Why not go for it? Why not give it a go? Because I too want to be a successful porn star. And that's what the networks want. And I think that's been the problem with this show for a long time. We did not want to be porn stars. We did not want to be used in such a way. And at the end of the day, maybe sex workers have it right that we are all prostitutes in our own way. And they're right. We are. We're a prostitute to our job. We're a prostitute to our society. Someone is the pimp and we are providing the sex. So maybe it's time for me to give up. Porn offers pleasure without intimacy. Civility gives you the feeling of progress without reform. So I can be used for that, I guess. Oh, look, a Puerto Rican's got a late night show. Looks like everything's changed for Puerto Ricans. Yeah, sure, fuck it, why not? Why not? I'll jerk people off. Want me to blow them too? I'll blow them. Oh, he's a great mind. He's a conservative, legend. Fucking what a great guy. What a great guy. He built the platform. How about that? He built the movement that's so admirable that so many young people liked him. I can do it. See, I'm doing it now. I just want to be. Since you won't let me do anything else, since you won't let me live how I want anywhere else, well, goddamn it, I'll just do it. I'll sell out. Bobby will sell out. Bobby's got nothing going on. Bobby's broke. Bobby eats ramen. I don't pay him to produce this show. No one pays us to do this show. WRKM still will not pay. And to be fair, maybe that's where I've gone wrong. My current pimp doesn't give me any money. Maybe if my current pimp gave me money, I'd be in a happier space. I don't know. But now, Jimmy's problem was he didn't know how to grieve correctly. And if you don't grieve correctly, there's consequences. Nancy Mace wants to go after people. She wants to use ICE to take people who have said mean things about Charlie Kirk and his death. And get those meanies. Never mind, the constitutional crisis that creates. But hey, as we said last time, maybe it's our time to lose. Maybe this is it. I better make peace with this now, because this might be the one that gets us out of here. But it was a good run. It's a good run. If you don't see us back in 2 weeks, you'll know what happened. We'll just have to rely on our second job that starts next Friday. If you haven't heard the announcement, we have a second show starting called Darkness Across America. I don't understand why these burps are coming, but they're coming fast and furious. But we have a new show called Darkness Across America that starts next Friday. Real conversations with real people, not about politics, not about societal stuff, just things they've experienced. Ghosts, demons, cults. That will be our secondary show that will also be airing every 2 weeks. So you'll get this one in Darkness Across America, this one in Darkness Across America. Then I'll also be doing something for Substack, like a monthly essay on dispatches from the darkness. Check that out. We got a couple on there now that are really good. Our Oasis review is on there if you want to check that out. But that's what Jimmy didn't realize, man. There's no place for this shit no more. You either gotta fucking get down or lay down, dog. And maybe it's time for us to get down. Because laying down has done nothing for us. So we'll be civil, sure. Believe in my dehumanization. Support people who don't see me as their equal. Sure, whatever, that's fine. You got it. Like, I know. I'm the problem here. I'm the problem. I'm just the person who wants, to have a good life and want other marginalized people to have a good life. So I'm a bad person. I'm bad. I'm bad. I'm bad for pointing out, racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia when I see it. I'm just a bad person. Just a bad person. Lock me up. Lock me up. That would be the clip to play in court. Well, he wanted us to lock him up. He said, lock him up. Lock him up. This was not porn. There's no money shot for this. None. If anything, this is like one of those free clips you get and you're kind of into it and then it cuts out because you don't have the premium subscription. I was a young man once. I watched porn. It was nice potting with you, Bobby, while we still could. We will just wait till the FCC knocks on WRKM's door, and that'll be it for us. But then again, I think we both knew how this one was always going to end.